Hey, Dibs.
Doesn't work as well.
Why don't we play for everybody what Kyle Shanahan said when he was asked, hey, why don't you just give the kid the week off?
Yeah, if there was a decision, I mean, based off of how he is and stuff. But to me, that wasn't a decision because how he's been throughout this week. And now that's why he's going to have a chance, and we'll see how the protocol goes tomorrow.
Okay, there you have it. if there was a decision and stuff, I'd make it. But there's no decision and stuff, so I'm not going to make it.
He's probably my favorite.
One more time. Come on, one more time.
On.
For the people in the back.
Thank you.
Yeah, if there was a decision, I mean, based off of how he is and stuff. But to me, that wasn't a decision because how he's been throughout this week. And now that's why he's going to have a chance, and we'll see how the protocol goes tomorrow.
It's perfect.
It's the most Kyle Shanahan response in the history of ever.
So was there a decision or there wasn't a decision?
No decision.
Well, if there was a decision and stuff, then we'd have a decision to make, but there's no decision, so and stuff, so we don't have a decision to make. And if there were a decision, then we'd have to decide on which decision we'd make, but there's no decision and stuff. So, he's going through the protocol and stuff.
That is 10 perfect seconds.
It's perfect.
Of Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, if there was a decision, I mean, based off of how he is and stuff. But to me, that wasn't a decision because how he's been throughout this week. And now that's why he's going to have a chance, and we'll see how the protocol goes tomorrow.
So what I hear him say is, if he passes the protocol, he's playing. There's no decision and stuff.
Correct.
The decision is not his to make. If he passes the protocol and stuff, he's going to play quarterback on Sunday.
Right.
That's it. There's no decision.
Listen, you can hate this.
I don't hate it.
No. I'm talking to everybody. You can hate this, but this is, and I will to a degree have Kyle's back here, because this is the way that NFL coaches do it. You get a piece of paper at the end of the week, and they're like, here are the players' names who are good. Here are the players' names who aren't good. The people on the good side, they play. They're not going to go start calling people's parents and find out who's okay with what. It's just the culture. It's the way you do it. If you are, and it's why I understand it. I am fully aware of what Dr. Nowinski said. Not Dirk, Chris. I'm fully aware. We read it earlier. Did he not answer when you called him, Luke? He just didn't answer. You didn't get him? All right. I get it. Might this be totally unhealthy for Brock? Sure. Might be. I'm not a doctor, so maybe it is. I know that unhealthy decisions are made in the NFL all of the time. People are getting shots. People are taking shots on the field, in the locker room. They're doing all kinds of things that are very, very dangerous and not good for the body. But the head coach, when it comes to injuries, and doctors and neurologists go, hey, coach, he's good, then he's in.
And there's no decision.
Again, I mean, there is, but not if you look at it that way, and that's how they look at it.
That's how he looks at it,
yes.
And that's exactly, we're making light of Kyle and him giving a perfectly Kyle Shanahanian response. But
it's so good.
But what he's telling you is exactly what you're saying, Mark. There is no decision.
Right.
Brock Purdy is QB1. And if Brock Purdy is healthy, he will play as QB1. Now, will he be healthy or not? It's not up to Kyle Shanahan. It's up to the independent neurologist and the team doctor, who will both come to a consensus and agreement. And if they both say, hey, Kyle, QB1 is good to go, QB1 plays. And if QB1 is not good to go, QB2 plays.
It's very
There
robotic.
is no decision.
Right. It's
exactly.
very robotic. It's A to B.
Like it or hate it, and I'm going to take that part of it out of this because that's how Kyle's looking at it and stuff. It's, there's no decision. And if there was a decision, then he'd have to decide. He'd have to choose between the two things, and that would be making a decision, but there is no decision and stuff.
So he doesn't have to make a decision.
So there's no decision.
I need to hear it one more time.
Yeah, if there was a decision, I mean, based off of how he is and stuff. But to me, that wasn't a decision because how he's been throughout this week. And now that's why he's going to have a chance, and we'll see how the protocol goes tomorrow.
Yep. So if there was a decision, I'd make it, but there's no decision, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's, now we can get the next level of it is do you think it's the right, and it's not a decision.
There's no decision.
Do you think that this is the right course of action? And that, I think, is where the conversation can go, because for me, it's not the right course of action, but I understand why he's going this way.
And that's fine. And there is a third level with injuries, but not concussions. The third level of injuries is you do get to Sunday sometimes, and you haven't been declared in or out. If you have questions about this, all you got to do is go to Rap Sheet or Schefter's late Saturday night Twitter feed. It is the place to go if you've got fantasy questions late on a Saturday night. They will start telling you who's going to play and who's not of all the questionable players. They'll tell you. Why? Because they know. The team knows the night before, unless you do get the situations where they go, got to get to game time warmups, see how the injury reacts, and then we're going to make the decision there, and they will tweet that on a Saturday night.
Was that McCaffrey last week?
A true game time decision. No. Remember, Schefter was on in the morning on McAfee on Monday morning, and he's like, he's in.
That's right.
They did not wait for game time warm-ups.
I'm trying to remember. There was one last week that was a game time warm-up choice. It doesn't matter who it was. I'm just trying to remember. It is rare, though. You're right.
But you can't do that with a concussion, because a concussion, you've either graduated out of the protocol or not. It's much more clear, black and white, yes or no. So there's no, go warm your brain up, and we'll see how it reacts. You're not allowed to do that.
No.
So he's either going to get his clearance tomorrow or not. If he gets his clearance, there's no decision and stuff.
He's getting his clearance. That is, I would put it at like 90%, 95% that he gets his clearance, because he's gone through the steps so far really rapidly, and there's been no hiccups. There's been no we need an extra day for him to get to light workout to heavy workout. And today he was a full participant. So I don't know why he's even listed as questionable, other than the fact that he does need to wake up tomorrow and be symptom-free and pass the protocol of, do you have a headache? What's 2 + 2? Is it still equaling 4 in your brain? What's your balance like? Your cognition and all the rest of it.
Kyle Shanahan, last thing that he's got to do, clear one last step. He was a full go today. He's just got to pass that tomorrow. Nick Wagner has the article on ESPN, and Adam Schefter tweeted 6 minutes ago, quote, there is a realistic chance that Brock Purdy will start Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Okay.
So there you go.
Good luck to you, Brock. Godspeed, and protect that head of yours.
Matty Burrows in 15 minutes. Let's go to Shay in Annapolis, Maryland. Hey, Shay. You're on with Willard and Dibs. What's up?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm an Eagle fan, and the thing is, I'm really watching closely attention to the Niners, and I got to tell you something, man. They don't look like a dynamic team when it comes to throwing the football, and I've watched Brock Purdy since last season. I got to tell you, if I'm a defense, I am not convinced this offense can come from behind if they have to throw the football, if you shut the run game down. Because we've seen the last 2 weeks where teams have shut the run game down and forced Brock Purdy to throw the football. Do you believe when this team gets to the postseason, if they have to rely on Brock Purdy's arm, do you think they can win games?
I personally do, Shay, but my question for you, especially if you're an Eagles fan, is are you overrating what you watched just the last 2 weeks? In other words, did you watch the game on Sunday night against the Cowboys, and did you come away with the same impression that the 49ers are not dynamic throwing the football?
I've been watching this team since last season when Brock Purdy took the helm.
Okay.
And I saw in the divisional game against Dallas. Now, can we agree no team was able to run the ball that game until late in that ball game? And my question is, I think if Dak Prescott did not have a bad game, an average game, Dallas probably would have won that game. But you saw in the Philly game, in the championship game, Philly dominated in the trenches and took away the run game. And also they got up 21-7 and forced the 49ers to throw the football.
Shay, you can't bring that into the conversation. You can't talk about how dynamic the Niners are or are not throwing the ball and bring up last year's NFC title game as an example. They were on QB4. Brock Purdy completed all 4 of his passes, and then he left. So I'm not saying you're wrong, but don't use that as an example.
For this year, and we have not seen this team trail a lot.
That's true.
Since Brock Purdy is him. I think you said this a couple of days ago, and I think you're kind of a little shaky. If this team gets behind, can this team throw the football to win a game?
Shay, the way I said it, and I'll agree with you. Shay, thanks so much, man. The way I said it, and I will agree with this. My question, and quite frankly, it's the only one that I have with regard to Purdy and the 49er offensive structure. Can they function at a high level when the other team knows they have to throw? Which, sure, that's a part of what Shay is saying, which is if you're behind. And I think that is the fair question. The fair question, because when you talk about Kyle Shanahan's offense, and he's a genius, and it's because of his blocking schemes and all of the things that send a defense in the wrong direction pre-snap, if all of that kind of goes away, where the other team's like, dude, you're down 10 with 8 minutes to go.
Sure.
So you can mess around whatever you want in
Or
the
down
backfield.
8 with 15 minutes to go.
Correct, which is 0-36.
Which is stunning.
It is stunning. So if you're in that situation, and it's like you can, Debo can relocate to the backfield all you want. You're not doing that. So we know. So we're going to hang back here. Can you still function at a high level? I don't know. Not yet.
No, not yet. In 36 games under Kyle Shanahan, where they're down by 8 in the fourth quarter.
Right. I look at each quarterback era as different.
I agree with you.
And so we're here now, and it would be, I guess, what? 0-2?
With Brock Purdy.
How many times have they been down 8 in the fourth quarter with Brock Purdy?
This year, I don't think that they have.
Maybe not at all. Were they down 8 against Minnesota in the fourth quarter? They were down 9 at half. And then were they down 19-10? No. Were they? I'll look that up.
I'll look it up right here. They were down they were down 22-14 after 3.
Okay, there you go. So they're
down
0-1 in the Purdy era.
Right.
In that scenario.
Yeah, and last year you were down by that much against Kansas City, and obviously you didn't come back, but that was Jimmy Garoppolo. That was one of the rare Jimmy games late in the season, but the fact that they're 0-36 under Kyle Shanahan speaks to what you're talking about in terms of, all right, you're down by 8 or more. We know that all of your cute little motions and your shifts and all of the other trickery that is so effective in this offense, well, you can't really do that anymore. And also, under Kyle Shanahan now, if you're down by 8 or more and you do have to throw it, you're probably going to abandon the 21 personnel that I love so much with Kyle Juszczyk, and now you're going to a 3 wide receiver set. 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wides, and that means it's Juwan Jennings or Ray McLeod or Ronnie Bell. Your wide receiver depth chart is not good enough, or it hasn't been traditionally good enough to where when you go to a 3rd wide receiver, you're going to be that much of a mismatch problem.
Right. And Ayuk didn't even see the ball in the second half of that game.
Right.
Because, as you just mentioned, you look at a receiving core like that, if I'm the defense, what am I doing? I'm worried about Brandon, and I'm worried about George, and I'm not really worried about much else.
Exactly. And Christian, I'm coming out of the backfield.
Coming out of the backfield. But again, I think a running back's role is lessened when you're in the fourth quarter and you're down by 8 or more.
Yes, and he's going to run a lot more of the underneath. And, Juwan had a couple of good catches, and Ray had a catch. But in general, when you do get to that spot and you do have to throw it, like you're talking about, when the defense knows you're throwing it and you know you're throwing it and you're going to 3 wides or maybe even 4 wides, which I wonder if the Niners have even done that at all this year, going 4 wide receivers. You don't have the personnel normally to stack up against defenses.
I will say this. I don't know that means, like, even if we don't like the answer to that question, that doesn't mean the Niners, quote unquote, aren't dynamic throwing the ball. I do think they're dynamic throwing the ball. But it is absolutely a problem and a weakness if we all decide that dynamic passing game only works from ahead. It only works early in the game. We've watched the 49ers run up and down the field on that opening drive this year. It's been a touchdown almost every time. I think it was a field goal against the Giants, and it was a fumble against the Vikings. But nobody has made them punt. They come out with that script, and they are coming at you, and they are having a ton of success. But if game flow gets out of hand and you do fumble, or the other team's offense has got it going early as well, and you get behind, and that changes everything, and we decide that they're only dynamic when they're even or ahead, well, I mean, obviously, that's a massive problem and weakness.
Yeah, and so far it hasn't really been an issue because you've been ahead almost all the time. The first time going back to the Cleveland game that you were actually trailing was for about 1:45 against the Rams. First 5 games, you only trailed for less than 2 minutes of actual football, and then you got behind Cleveland, and he actually did rally them to a spot where you could have won the game, and then the kicker missed.
I think, and I'm just doing this from memory, I think this game against the Vikings is only the second time that Brock Purdy's been down by 2 scores. I think. Can you think of another one?
The Raiders, right?
Raiders were up by 10 in the third quarter, and the Vikings were up by 9 in the third quarter. I can't think of another time when Purdy's 49ers were down by 2 scores, which first for a second is holy cow amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Vikings were up by 12 in the third. They went up 19-7, and then McCaffrey with the answer to make it 19-14. Then they went up 8.
Okay. So that was his biggest deficit ever.
12 points.
Against the Vikings.
Yeah, because the Raiders were up by 10.
They were up by 10.
Right?
They were up by 10. And I can't think of, I mean, obviously the Browns had a lead, but it was a tiny one. And if you do,
the Rams had a lead by 7.
The Rams had a 7-point lead, and for those of us who do count the Dolphins game, his first game when he entered in, when Jimmy got hurt, they were down by 4 when he arrived. Outside of that, has a dude ever been down? Has he even been behind? Other than that,
geez, I mean, I'm looking at his game log from last year, and it's hard to pinpoint a lot of games, if any, when he was down, right?
Well, the Dolphins game, as we said, down by 4 when he entered. The Bucs game was next week. They
crushed them.
Absolutely crushed them. Seattle was the following week with the broken ribs, had a great first quarter and held on to that one by 8. Washington. Did Washington ever have even a tiny lead against the 49ers? Let's see. No, they did not.
No.
Washington, who lost 37-20, never had the lead.
It's 21-7 Niners and never got much closer.
And we mentioned the Raiders won. They were up by 10. Then there was the Cardinals, blew them out. Then the 2 playoff games. Obviously, Philadelphia down 7-0 when he got the ball, but that drive ended with his injury. And then we know about this year. So by my count, this guy's only even faced a deficit 4 times in his NFL career.
Wow, yeah.
And a 2-score deficit only twice, and he's 1-1 in those games. So
that, I mean, that's something that he still has to go out there and, quote, prove.
Small sample.
It's a small sample, and I also look at what he did against Cleveland where, he wasn't great all game. He was fine, and then he made the throws necessary. Right. He had a couple of drops, a couple of big plays he made that were dropped.
The Cleveland one's interesting because while it wasn't dynamic, I will say you twice fell behind in the fourth quarter. You were twice given drives to go get points on the board to take the lead, and both times you did it. You got a field goal and took the lead, and then you fell back behind, and you set him up for a 41-yard field goal, and he missed it. But he went on the drive both times that he needed to go on in order to get points on the board.
Yep. Jordan Mason with the touchdown to put you up 17-13.
Correct. Yes.
And then you got the ball back down 2, and you led him to a field goal spot, and your kicker missed it.
Correct. Yeah, that's fair. That was much more the defense and Jordan Mason that set up the touchdown to give the 49ers the lead. But still, he made the drive. He did not against the Vikings, but a little early, I think, to say, oh, that means that the 49er offense doesn't work from behind. It is my question. It is my question.
But the fact that Shanahan is 0-36 when trailing by 8 or more in the fourth quarter,
that's more interesting.
That's not a small sample size.
It is not.
And that is very interesting. And now Brock Purdy is going to be the guy who hopefully can break that streak.